They called me at 3 in the morning, and when I tell you the voice on the other end made my stomach tighten, I mean it's sharp, practiced, the kind of voice that never apologizes for waking people up because it never thinks it owes anyone anything. "Ethan, you need to give us the gate keys," she said, calm as a weather report. "It's for the community." I told her no. She laughed like I'd offered to hand over my house. That laugh, that's where this all began. My name is Ethan Cole. I grew up in a place where your porch light meant something, where my grandfather's watch sat in a cedar box and Sunday dinners were sacred. We called our neighborhood Willow Ridge, and we thought we belonged to each other. Turns out, belonging can be bought or bulldozed if the right people decide you don't fit the plan. The first act of the story is small and stupid and infuriating, like most betrayals. She'd invoked a bylaw about emergency access. I asked what emergency. She said storm prep. I drove home that morning anyway, not because I expected anything dramatic, just because it was my house. When I pulled up, the gate was splintered, the lock pried open, and the cedar box empty. The watch was gone, the purple heart my grandfather carried in a leather case gone. You don't think about how much a small, ordinary thing anchors you until it's taken. At the HOA meeting that followed, Marla Finch smiled like butter and told the room she was saddened by the loss. Her nephew, the one who sold me a snowblower in the summer, sat quiet in the back wearing cuffs of a man who knows how to keep his mouth shut until the right question is asked. People nodded, offered condolences. The board shoved paperwork and plat maps around like they were solving a crossword. Behind those smiles were ledgers, little columns of fines and transfers, names circled next to foreclosure dates. Motive started looking a lot like a spreadsheet. I didn't have cops at first, just a report number and the kind of sympathy that knows how to fade. My brother Jesse, who's been a cop longer than he's been married, showed me a grainy pawnshop photo 3 days later, a watch with my grandfather's engraving, and a kid who looked like he'd been told to move fast. "It's Kevin Finch," Jesse said. "He pawned it under a fake name." That's when the fight stopped being about a missing watch and started being about a pattern. Patterns are boring until they aren't. We started finding them: shell companies with Willow Ridge addresses, odd transfers and secret meetings, properties that went into default the moment a neighbor missed a single fine. The HOA wasn't managing community, it was managing assets. People who'd been born on their lots got letters overnight. Fines piled up like winter snow until they couldn't pay. And then someone with clean hands and a lawyer's smile bought the property at auction. That's not stewardship, that's scavenging. Lucky for me, the neighborhood has people who remember. Ruth Henderson, 82 and sharp as a tack, told me she'd seen Marla's car on the road at odd hours, and she'd seen a second sedan late, quiet at the back gate. Harvey, who used to balance budgets for a living and drinks his coffee like a man who measures his days, found a ledger page shoved behind a filing cabinet, a handwritten list with addresses, action codes, and amounts. It smelled like evidence. It felt like the keys we needed. The middle act, the turning, is where things go sloppy and brave all at once. I called a meeting and I recorded it. That's a modern kind of courage, I guess, and a modern kind of proof. I put together the pawn slip, the ledger photo, a map of transfers, and a few neighbors who'd been brave enough to stand with me. We planned a trap that was half legal, half theatrical, a public hearing where neighbors could speak and Marla could try to do her usual performance. On the day, the room was full of the kind of people that make up any small town. Folks in work boots, a couple of teenagers who came to see a scene, a woman who still smelled like baking. I stood up and I told the story plainly. No flourish, just the truth laid out like a kitchen table. When I mentioned the watch, I pulled the pawn receipt from my pocket and set it on the table like a dare. Bravery, as it turns out, is contagious. Brenda, a board member who'd always been small and apologetic at meetings, stood up and her voice changed. "There's a ledger," she said. I was told to hide it. I thought I was protecting people. I didn't know." Marla's face tightened in that slow, deliberate way of someone who has rehearsed being kind but never recoil. "You shouldn't believe everything you hear," she said, but her voice had cracks. Her nephew, Kevin, came in late and left early like a boy who knows he's being watched. When asked directly if he'd been at the pawn shop, he stammered and looked at the floor. That's when the room shifted from curiosity to anger. There's a moment, about 2/3 through a story, when the gods decide whether the little people get their turn. For us, it came as a search warrant the next week. Jesse and a small team showed up at dawn with badges and coffee and the kind of determination that doesn't ask permission. They found ledger pages. They found a stack of transfer documents linking shell companies to Marla's allies. And in the back of a cluttered office, they found my grandfather's watch in a shoebox under a pile of HOA newsletters. Kevin broke after an hour with questions and said things about pressure, about being told this is how it's done, about being young and thinking family meant you obey. Justice inside neighborhoods is messy. Arrests happen not like in movies, with dramatic handcuffs and a choir, but quiet, practical, and final. Marla and the treasurer were taken in. Kevin, because of his age and testimony, got a lesser sentence and a chance to pay back what he'd taken. The ledger entries started unspooling a dozen little tragedies: bank foreclosures, ruined credit, families forced to move. Some of those families got offers to buy back their lots. Most of them got apologies that sounded like press releases. When the items were returned, the watch clean but older, the heart-shaped metal dulled but whole, it felt less like a victory and more like a small repair to something that had been slowly ripped. I sat on my front step and replaced my grandfather's watch in the cedar box, and for the first time in weeks I could breathe without the sour taste of anger in my mouth. But the gate stayed splintered for a while. We didn't replace the lock right away because I wanted the mark to be a reminder that we can be taken when we forget to look after one another. Here's the thing that sticks with me. Marla believed she was saving something. She told a reporter later she thought she was protecting the integrity of the community, that tough choices had to be made. It's a version of righteousness I recognize, the kind that looks at people as numbers and not neighbors. Her explanation didn't make her right. It made her human, which is worse in some ways, because it means these patterns can repeat. The final act, the cinematic one you expect, is smaller and quieter than you think. There was the hearing that cleared a few names, the return of items, the slow work of rebuilding trust. But the satisfying part, the one that made people stand a little taller, was when the community stepped up and changed the bylaws that had been weaponized. We added transparency, third-party audits, and a clause that made secret transfers illegal. We made it harder to hide behind legalese and easier to call someone out. And yet I don't want this to feel tidy. The last scene is a porch light and a ledger in a file marked evidence in the town office, and a man named Ethan who still checks his front gate at night. Some of the neighbors moved on, and some stayed to tend the settlement like a garden. Kevin writes letters now to people he hurt, and there's a tremor of sincerity there that keeps me up sometimes, wondering whether people can change or whether they'll find new ways to protect themselves. So here's what I want from you. Tell me what you would have done in my place. Was I naive for not seeing the patterns sooner, or right to trust the neighbors who finally told the truth? Do you think people like Marla are villains, or just people who got lost in the math? Drop a comment below. Tell me who you side with. Tell me if justice is about punishment or repair. Tell me about your own neighborhood fights. If this made you think twice about the people on your street, share it. Let's start a conversation about what we protect and why. If you like hearing this, hit subscribe. And if you want more stories like this, I'll keep telling them, because sometimes it takes one person who refuses to hand over the keys to wake up a whole town.